And both of you have said something in different ways that's so important. It's just a critical piece of Atomic Habits, the book, which we've talked about before, and I have highly recommended in the past. But you change your identity. You
Mhm.
decided, like, I'm a biker, I'm a runner, I'm not a smoker, and you think differently when you're like, I'm now a runner. I'm a guy who wants to put like water and electrolytes in this pack around my middle instead of Mountain Dew. That's a
Yep.
significant just like brain shift. So for both of you, is that the commonality when you started coming together and saying, boy, we could help other people? Was it mindset or was it tactical? Hey guys, quit drinking Mountain Dew and eating McDonald's, or was it this mindset? Was that where you said, you know what, our journeys are different, but this is the commonality?
I think it was a little bit of both, but definitely more mindset. We had both collectively at that point, we had both done hundreds and hundreds of things, tried so many different ways to be healthier, to be mentally healthier. Some worked, some didn't. And for me, I know I wanted to really just give back to the community that supported me um, for nearly 15 years coming through this journey. And so it was a lot of let's show people that there are these tools, and also let's show people that you can be a guy, you can be vulnerable, you can talk about your problems. And then ultimately, it was this is really hard to do. Like, you see celebrities and fitness models, it looks easy, but it's a struggle. And that's actually where the name of our show came up, The Fit Mess, because it's so hard to do. And it takes that genuine mindset that you were talking about to actually make these changes and have them stick and go forward with them. So it was definitely a little bit of both, but in the beginning it was let's share the things that we learned collectively, and then it's morphed into this is all mindset.
Yeah, certainly in the last year or so, that's where we've really realized that those decision points were where all of this started for us just personally. In terms of sharing it, it was very much, like I said, Zach's been a few steps ahead of me on this. And so a lot of the conversations we were having were just being really vulnerable guys and sharing, like, I'm trying to do this and this is hard. And guys don't do that. For guys, it's always, oh yeah, I got it figured out. I'm killing it. I'm making money at work and I'm going to the game and then we're going to fly to the island and we're going to do the things. And we weren't having those conversations. For us, it was, God, I've tried this so many times and I can't figure it out. What did you do? Oh, here's what I did. Give it a shot. And so and when it started sort of going both ways, where I was then trying things that maybe Zach hadn't or had tried and didn't work for him, that's when it really meshed for me. Cause I'd already been podcasting. I've been in radio and podcasting since like 1999. And nothing I ever did was anything like this that actually helped somebody. I was always doing something just to entertain. And so the idea of just being that open and that vulnerable and sharing this kind of conversation publicly was very scary, but it was also, I felt very important that other guys hear guys like us saying, this is hard. It's okay to fail because that's when you learn the most and all of that. And so the more that we really leaned into just be open about the struggle and how hard it is, the more it made sense that this is something that we felt was important to share.
There's so many studies and so much research about men and male relationships and how they often don't get to the depth that female relationships do. How did the two of you, when you met, get comfortable talking about mindset? Because it could have been just as easy for you to be like, hey, want a Mountain Dew? Sure, I'll get a Mountain Dew with you. Sucks to be heavy, right? Because there's that, like, you could be
Right.
buddies that way too. What's your favorite shake or ice cream? I mean, you could have bonded on the food and the dietary mistakes instead of on the health path, which takes the vulnerability. So how did you get there with your own relationship?
Yeah, actually, when we met and first started talking, and even when we started diving into some of these conversations, we both were drinking beer at the time, and a lot of the conversations started while drinking beer. Like we would go find a good place to go drink, and then the conversations never really got deep. And I do remember once when we just had like one beer, and like there was, we were both relatively sober with one beer, and I just started asking him questions, like deeper questions that weren't surface level, like how are you feeling, or how does that make you feel, as we were just chatting about things. And it, there was a wall up, and I just kept hitting it with a sledgehammer, and eventually it broke. But um it was really interesting that like once that wall went down and we like Jeremy and I don't really have like that surface level small talk conversation anymore. It's just like, hey, how are you? Well, let me tell you how I am. And then it's a 30-minute conversation later of really how I am.
Yeah, and I think it's normal for guys to go into that, any new relationship, meeting another guy or whatever, and there's always shields up. And I think it's partially fear of being vulnerable and sharing, but it's also just, I think in my case, it's more a fear of how are they going to react to my ability to be so open and to just talk about what's real. Because I've had conversations with people where I typically the shields aren't up that much. I'll test early how people are going to respond. And you can see them just like shut down. Like, I don't even know how to interact with this because this isn't poker. This isn't baseball. This isn't football. This isn't work. And they're just like, they just kind of scramble and the relationship is gone before it even starts, and which is fine because I don't need those surface level relationships in my life. So I think a lot of times I would like to think that a lot of guys are like me, that they're more afraid of what the reaction is going to be than they are of actually being vulnerable. And you just have to get okay with the fact that some people are going to be really scared and turned off by that. And when they are, that's not somebody who's meant to be sort of in your orbit anyways.
This is a question that you may or may not have the answer for, but I know that we have a lot of women who listen. And a woman might be saying, man, I wish my husband, my boyfriend, my partner, my brother, my dad had a relationship like that, but they don't. And I wish they would. Like, any tips on what women can do for the men in their life to encourage them to have deeper relationships? I know someone has to want it first, but I think sometimes men don't even know what they're missing.
Yeah. So when we started the show, we actually, we said to ourselves that we want to target other men so that they could learn from us and have these vulnerable conversations. And then when we actually looked at our audience, it was mostly women. And the comments that we got almost all the time was, I wish my husband listened. I wish my boyfriend listened. It was incredible. It was exactly as you just described it, the feedback that we were getting on our show. And it's a really good question. And I don't know as if we have a direct answer for it. Jeremy might, but I think for me anyway, it's just leading by example, making sure that like I am showing other guys that you can, like, I can be a manly guy. Like, I can change a tire and I know how to use a lot of power tools. I have a garage full of them and I love them. And I just saw another excuse to go get another one and I'm going to do it. But there's a whole nother side to it. So I want to show by example that you can have this vulnerable side. You can have all of these other parts that really round you out as a human being in general. So for me, it's just leading by example and having these conversations in a public, open place where everyone can hear me. And some people are going to judge me and other people might go, I wonder if I could do that too.
The thing I would add is I think like most self-development thing, like most things in life, it's a skill. Some of us are a little more naturally gifted with it. Some of us, it takes work, and you have to get okay with rejection. You have to get okay with that weird look that you might get when you share a feeling with another guy. And the fact that like, if they're not open to it, great. Then you don't have to waste any more time there. Like, you can still just have the surface level baseball conversation with that person, and that's great. But just practice, right? And read books. There are tons of books. We've talked to tons of people about this very subject of how do you get better at being open. There's tons of research out there. You can do it. You can listen to shows like ours. There are plenty of other shows where just you can learn to just tap into the fact that you are a vulnerable person on this rock, and we're all having a very similar experience, and there are people a few steps ahead of you that you can learn these lessons from. And so again, I think it's just a skill that just needs refining and practicing to master.
And let's stop identifying different things as like male or female. Like, why do we do this? It's like, we're all humans and we all have these different strengths and weaknesses and I shouldn't say weaknesses, opportunities for growth. And I know for me with I was an investigative reporter for years. I'm a very curious person. I ask all sorts of questions and people oftentimes bare their soul to me. It's a gift, apparently. And so my husband would come back from golf trips, especially when he was in his 20s with his buddies from high school, be like, hey, how's so-and-so? I don't know. And then literally like 3 days later, one of the wives would text like, did my husband tell your husband that I'm pregnant? Like, no, like, they were together for like 3 days and I didn't know you were pregnant. So I think like for us anyway, it was these little droplets of, hey, you probably should ask, like, how's your family and how are your kids? And it's pretty clear who doesn't want to talk about it. But occasionally he's seen then that some men will say like, well, you just have to open the door and make it safe. And then some people want to walk into it. And some people absolutely do not want that kind of relationship. That's on them. But we really benefited from both of us having the opportunities to have people that we can have deep conversations with in a safe way. And then we also have the friends where it's like, yeah, we're never going to have that. That's fine. That doesn't make it a bad friendship. It's just a different kind of friendship.